The smell of fresh bread filled the grocery store, but I barely noticed. My sister-in-law, Karen, raised her voice so loud the cash registers seemed to pause. She can't even afford bread. The words cut sharper than any knife. A group of shoppers turned their heads. One man chuckled, another woman shook her head in pity. Their laughter swelled, bouncing off the tiled walls. I felt my cheeks burn as Karen smirked, tapping her manicured nails on the counter like she owned the place. Maybe she should ask for crumbs, she added, her voice dripping with arrogance. I stood frozen, my hands gripping the shopping basket tighter. The crowd's eyes weighed on me, judgment, mockery, disbelief, but then the store manager stepped forward. And the whole room seemed to hold its breath. My name is Mia, and insults from Karen were nothing new. Ever since I married her brother, she made it her mission to remind me that I wasn't good enough. She wore her jewelry like armor, her designer purse swinging like a weapon, and every word from her mouth carried the sharpness of pride. But the truth was, I hadn't grown up with wealth. My father worked nights fixing cars in a dimly lit garage, and my mother sewed dresses to help put food on the table. I was the kind of girl who wore the same shoes for 3 years, patching them until the leather cracked. I learned early that dignity wasn't about having everything, it was about how you carried yourself when you had almost nothing. Karen never understood that. She flaunted her riches at family gatherings, whispering about how her brother had settled too low when he chose me. Even at Thanksgiving, while the turkey roasted and laughter filled the dining room, she leaned across the table and hissed, "You'll never belong in this family." I had smiled politely, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break, and yet, life has a way of flipping the balance. What Karen didn't know, what most of them didn't know, was that years of hard work had shaped me into something far more than she ever imagined. I had built a career quietly, brick by brick, without the need for applause or her shallow approval. Standing there in that grocery store, with the crowd's laughter ringing in my ears, I remembered every moment of being underestimated. Every sideways glance. Every insult. Every smug smile from Karen that tried to shrink me down. I kept my head steady, even as the sting of her words burned through me. Inside, I repeated the same lesson I had lived by. The loudest arrogance often hides the weakest spirit. As Karen adjusted her pearl necklace and basked in the crowd's cruel laughter, I felt the shift inside me. This wasn't just another insult to swallow quietly. Something told me this was the moment. The one that would turn the tables forever. I drew in a steady breath, my grip on the basket easing, and met her eyes. My silence must have unsettled her, because for the first time, her smirk faltered just slightly. The manager's shoes clicked closer across the polished floor. The whispers began to fade. A hush swept through the aisle, as if everyone sensed something they didn't yet understand. Karen's voice rose again, sharp enough to slice through the silence that had begun to settle. "Well? Are you going to beg for a discount, Mia? Maybe they'll let you mop the floor for a loaf of bread." The crowd chuckled uneasily, some amused, others embarrassed for me. I noticed a young boy tugging at his mother's sleeve, whispering something, as she quickly hushed him. Even the beep of the registers seemed slower, like the store itself was leaning in to watch. I refused to flinch. Instead, I lifted my chin, my eyes locked on Karen's smug face. She took my silence as weakness and pressed harder. "Honestly," she continued, brushing an invisible speck off her expensive coat, "this is pathetic. My brother could have married anyone, and he picked you. And now look, you can't even handle groceries." Whispers rippled through the bystanders. Some shook their heads at her cruelty, others leaned closer, hungry for more drama. Karen thrived on it, the audience, the attention, the control. She was glowing in her own arrogance, convinced she had won. Inside, my heart beat steady. I had been underestimated too many times to let her words break me. I could feel the reveal sitting on the edge of my tongue, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But I wasn't going to hand it to her easily. The store manager, Mr. Allen, approached with a measured pace, his brown shoes tapping softly against the polished floor. His face was calm, unreadable, but his eyes met mine briefly, as if sharing a secret no one else knew. Karen noticed too. She laughed and gestured toward him. "Oh look, the manager's here to rescue you. Maybe he'll give you a free handout, since you clearly can't pay." The laughter swelled again, though weaker this time, unsure. My silence unsettled them. I simply placed the basket on the counter and folded my hands, calm as stone. Mr. Allen stopped beside me, his presence commanding enough to quiet the aisle. The tension thickened, heavy enough that you could almost hear hearts pounding. Even Karen's voice wavered for a moment before she recovered with another cruel smile. "Well? What are you waiting for, Mia? Tell him you can't afford bread. Tell him." Her words cut off as Mr. Allen cleared his throat. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried authority. The crowd froze. My lips curled just slightly, because I knew the moment had finally come. Mr. Alan rested one hand on the counter, his gaze sweeping over the crowd before landing squarely on Karen. His voice was steady, but every word carried weight. "Ma'am," he said firmly, "you may want to lower your tone." Karen blinked, startled by the seriousness in his voice. Then she laughed, tossing her hair back. "Why? She can't even afford bread. I'm just stating the obvious." The air seemed to tighten. Mr. Allen looked directly at me, and then his lips curved into a respectful smile. "Thank you, boss." Gasps rippled through the aisle like a wave. A woman dropped a box of cereal, the crash echoing against the shelves. Head snapped back toward me, eyes wide with confusion. Karen's jaw hung open. "B-boss? What are you talking about?" Mr. Allen straightened, folding his hands behind his back. "This store, and 3 others in this county, belong to her. Mia isn't just shopping here. She owns it." Silence slammed down, broken only by the hum of the overhead lights. I let the truth hang in the air, watching the realization spread across every face. One man muttered, "She's the owner?" Another whispered, "I had no idea." Karen staggered back a step, color draining from her face. Her arrogant smirk dissolved into something pale and shaken. She clutched her purse tighter as if it could shield her from the truth. I finally spoke, my voice calm, measured. "I've never needed to prove myself to you, Karen. Respect isn't bought with money. Or shown off with jewelry. It's earned. Quietly. Day by day." The crowd's silence shifted to something else, admiration. I saw nods, small smiles, even a few murmurs of approval. Karen opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. She looked around for support. But the same people who had laughed moments earlier now avoided her eyes. Her power, built on humiliation, had crumbled in an instant. Mr. Allen gave me a slight nod of acknowledgement before stepping back, leaving the stage, and the silence, to me. Karen's lips trembled, her face frozen in disbelief. The only sound was the steady click of the cash register as the cashier scanned my basket. I didn't need to gloat. Her humiliation was already complete. The cashier slid the loaf of bread into a paper bag, her hands trembling slightly as she glanced at me with new respect. I could feel the shift in the room. The same crowd that had laughed now stood silent, heavy with shame for having joined Karen's cruelty. A few lowered their eyes, others shuffled uncomfortably, as if wishing they could rewind the moment. Karen, however, was frozen. Her painted lips parted, but no words came out. Her face, usually flushed with arrogance, looked pale under the fluorescent lights. She clutched the counter for balance, as though the truth had pulled the ground out from under her. I turned toward her, calm and steady. "It's never wise to judge someone by the basket in their hands," I said softly. "Because you never know what they've built beyond these walls." Her eyes darted to the people around us, desperate for an ally, but none appeared. Even the man who had laughed the loudest earlier avoided her gaze now, his shoulders hunched in shame. Karen was alone in her humiliation. The spotlight she had demanded now burned against her. I picked up my bag of groceries, my steps slow, deliberate. The hush of the store felt almost reverent, as if everyone understood the lesson written across the moment. Each footstep echoed louder than Karen's earlier taunts, each stride reclaiming the dignity she had tried to strip away. At the door, I paused. I didn't need to look back to know her expression, the trembling lips, the stiff posture, the desperate attempt to recover pride that had already slipped through her fingers. Still, I spoke one final truth, my voice steady and clear enough for the room to hear. "Respect is worth more than pride. Always." With that, I walked into the crisp afternoon air, the bag warm in my hands. The sun felt brighter, the world lighter. Behind me, the doors slid shut, sealing Karen in silence and leaving me with something far greater than revenge, dignity. The bread I carried wasn't just food. It was proof that sometimes the sweetest victories come not from shouting louder, but from standing tall when it matters most. And in that moment, I knew the crowd would remember not her insult, but the way she crumbled, and the way I left with my head high. Immoral respect stands taller than arrogance.